Hello, good evening. Welcome, y'alls. So, tonight we're getting back into, which I think it's going to be the last installment too, the end of the book, The Music Lesson, A Spiritual Search for Growth Through Music by Victor L. Wooten. And we're starting into measure 11, which is entitled Listening. We think that music stops at the ears. That is a mistake. Vibrations can be felt in all places and at all times, even with the eyes. We drove for a few miles to a place called Radnor Lake. Radnor, it's actually called by the locals, is one of Radnor, maybe. I mean, it's in quotations, but it's spelled exactly the same, so I'm not. Radnor is, as it's called by the locals, is one of Tennessee's most beautiful state parks, located near the Green Hills section of Nashville. Radnor is home to an abundant variety of wildflowers, birds, reptiles, and mammals. The 85-acre lake attracts naturalists, birdwatchers, and hikers from all around. Its trails, which traverse some of Tennessee's highest hills along with the lake, make it a popular place to visit all year round. It's a favorite site of mine, and a place I'd been to many times before, but only during the day. I'd never been there after dark. We parked at a nearby store and walked down a darkened street, which led to the park entrance. It must have been cloudy because no moon or stars were visible. That, coupled with the fact that there were no streetlights, made the walk seem as dark as if we'd had our eyes closed. The distant sounds of the forest added to the eeriness of the morning. Michael walked slowly in silence, often pausing as if he were listening for something. "This way," he said. He led me to a bench on the far end of the lake. "Listen," or "Listen," he whispered, as he quietly sat down. We sat in silence for a time, listening to the chorus of crickets, frogs, and other insects that filled the air. The sounds were mesmerizing and lulled me into a trance until Michael spoke. "Pay attention to how the animals are listening to each other," he instructed. I hadn't noticed it before, but the animals did seem to be listening to each other. It sounded like the different species were taking turns singing. When the animals did speak on top of each other, they did so in a different register. It was like listening to a well-orchestrated masterpiece. I was enjoying the music until an airplane flew overhead, causing all the animals to become silent. After the sound of the plane faded, the animals attempted to restart their chorus. It took a while for them to get back in sync, as if each musician wasn't quite sure when to come back in. There is a species of frog," Michael stated, "that uses their unison chorus for survival. When they speak together, they sound like a much larger animal. Unnatural sounds, like that airplane, break up their unity, and when they try to join back in, one by one, they are picked off and eaten by predators. Because of that, some species of frogs are becoming extinct. It goes unnoticed by most people. We have forgotten, as a species, how to listen." Wow. Hey, Paradox Fossils, welcome in. Welcome all. I'd never thought about the possibility of noise pollution leading to the extinction of animals. Nor I. Everything is so interwoven. I knew how awful certain noises made me feel. So it was not too far-fetched for me to believe that these noises could severely affect other animals too. I sat in a melancholy trance thinking about it. That is until Michael started making low, guttural sounds. I didn't know what he was trying to do. He kept it up for about 15 minutes, taking short pauses and turning his head as if to listen in all directions. All of a sudden, I felt something land on my left leg. Then, it jumped to my right leg. It startled me. Inside my body, I was screaming. Outside, I was frozen and silent. I would have knocked it into the water if Michael hadn't picked it up first. I tried to focus my eyes in the dark. I couldn't tell what it was until I heard it make the same sound Michael had been making. It was a frog, a rather large frog. Michael turned the frog upside down and started rubbing its belly. "All animals like to be petted," he said. This is Betty. She's a friend of mine. Her brother Jeremiah died recently. Jeremiah the bullfrog. Jeremiah was a bullfrog, I asked. Yes, he was a good friend of mine. It's such a good song, right? I started to laugh, but then realized that he'd said that Jeremiah had died. Just in case he was serious, I acted sad. How did he die? Pollution, Michael replied. This area cannot sustain a number of frogs that it once could. Oh, it cannot. This area cannot sustain the number of frogs that it once could. What do you mean? I come here all the time. This lake is well taken care of. The rangers make sure that nothing is dumped into it, and noise pollution, he replied, interrupting me. Or you can call it vibration pollution. Either way, it is caused mostly by the airplanes and the nearby construction. The Friends of Radnor Lake Foundation has tried for years to get the air traffic rerouted so that the planes don't fly directly over the park. They have tried, but have not succeeded. Besides adding noise, the planes actually change the vibration of the park. That is not good for the animals or the visitors. Environmentalists know that the planes aren't good, but they do not fully understand why. Did Betty tell you that? I asked, feigning seriousness. No, I could sense it. That is why I come here almost every night and sing to the animals. It helps reset the vibration. The frogs seem to enjoy it the most. You know, when I was spending all that time on the farm, I would sing to the land and I would sing to the animals, especially Mama Pig. I don't know. It was for me though too. I just love the way it felt. Oh, it's too hot, but it is so good. Mm. You sing to them? I asked, no longer hiding my disbelief. And you're trying to get me to believe that they actually listen? I'm not trying to get you to believe anything. I'm just telling you what I do. I don't believe you. I don't believe you. You're a remarkable man and everything. I'll give you that much. I'll even go so far as to say that I believe you're crazy enough to come here every night and sing to frogs. But you can't expect me to believe that they actually listen to you. Oh, they listen all right, he stated. Better than most humans do. Most humans can't listen past their limited intelligence. The more they think they know, the less they honestly hear. Humans only hear what they want to hear. Play a record for a musician, and before he can listen to it, he has to know who it is. And once he knows, he decides what it sounds like before he ever hears it, solely based on what he thinks he knows about the performer. What difference does it make who it is? What does it sound like, and how does it make you feel? That is what is important. You could learn a thing or two from these animals. They know how to listen. Some of them don't even have ears. They can't hear at all, but they can feel. So with my voice and my whole being, I create healing vibrations that combat the damaging vibrations in the air. The animals allow these vibrations to penetrate their whole bodies, the vibrations acting somewhat like vitamins. That is the best way to listen. Allow your whole body to pick up the vibrations using the whole body as an eardrum. Hey, Therasia Byrne, long time no see. Hey, Dean, welcome in, everyone. Awesome. I'll have to work on listening like that, I noted, trying to calm myself down. Michael spoke in a tone that seemed to match the peaceful place we were in. I, on the other hand, was speaking through emotion alone, which made it hard to articulate my true feelings. Also, the dynamic of my voice was way too loud for the quiet space we were in, causing my rhythm to differ from that of the woods. Maybe a different technique would help. Taking a deep breath, I tried to relax before I spoke my next phrase. Although slow, I was learning. So in that paragraph I just read, listening, noted, emotion, dynamic, articulate, dynamic, space, rhythm, technique, phrase. Those are all of the elements of music that he's been learning about with Michael. That was cool. They're all italicized. That's an interesting thought, I said, proud of my composure. Yes, but not a foreign one. But you're still pulling my leg, right? The animals don't really listen to you, do they? You know that plants respond to music, don't you? He asked. Yes, I've heard about that before. Do plants have ears? Well, no, I guess not. Music, like all things, is vibration. That is all. Because we humans can hear music with our ears, we get stuck on the idea that that's all there is to it. Most of us wouldn't even consider the thought of seeing music or of hearing a flower. What we hear, we do not see, and what we see, we do not hear. We think that music stops at the ears. That is a mistake. Vibrations can be felt in all places and at all times, even with the eyes. Music can be seen if your awareness is broad enough. Wow. Like, maybe oh wow, even before, maybe like 18 or 19 years ago, I was tripping on acid, and Lauryn Hill came through the radio. And when she did, I could see her music, and I could see it like shifting sand in the air with different colors. It was like moving almost like you'd see like an electronic representation of music that you're hearing through a stereo. And it blew my mind. I'd never heard music that way before, like I was seeing it. That was something else. So much so that like I I started just to like exclaim in like sheer pleasure, just kind of guttural noises and like all kinds of noises. And my sister was driving at the time, and she thought that she had burned me, and she thought that something had happened. But no, I was just like, I was in ecstasy over that Lauryn Hill music that I was seeing and hearing. If your music you can see, if your awareness is broad enough. Years earlier, while living in Virginia, I'd played a few shows at a school for the deaf and blind. It always surprised me to watch the deaf kids dance. They could really feel the music. Sometimes we would aim our speakers at the floor to help them feel the music even more. Some of the blind kids even claimed to be able to see the music. I knew that they were responding to the vibrations of our music, but I don't think that I'd thought about it since then. Although I couldn't imagine seeing music or hearing a flower, what Michael was telling me made a lot of sense, but I didn't like it. I wasn't going to continue letting him suck me in with his sense making nonsense. He was talking about singing to frogs. Now, that's crazy talk in my book. Feeling my composure backslide, I started to respond, but he beat me to the punch. Vibrations, he continued, are penetrating, like ripples in the water. They bounce off. They bounce off you. They bounce off you, and they go right through you. An important thing to remember is that vibrations never stop vibrating. Think about that. Vibrations may change, but they never stop. That means that we should pay attention to the vibrations we're putting out there. I wasn't buying it. At least I wasn't allowing myself to buy it, and I was ready to let Michael know it. Do you charge the animals admission? I smirked. They pay me in their own way, he answered. Stop it, Michael. Just stop it. I've had enough, or I've heard enough. You bring me out here at, I don't even know what time it is, and spoon feed me this nonsense? Do you really expect me to? I was enjoying creating my own noise pollution when, all of a sudden, I was stopped mid-sentence by a gentle sound. Michael started singing. There were no words, but the most beautiful sounds filled the air. It didn't even sound like it was coming from his mouth. The music was just in the air. I don't have the words to explain what I was hearing. I wish I did. It was angelic. It was, well, angelic is the best I can do. I closed my eyes and let the music envelop me. It was easy to do. It was the first time I'd ever felt music with my whole body. I thought I'd done it before when I heard music that made me get up and dance, but even then, I was only hearing through my ears. At that moment in the woods, I was hearing with my whole body, and the music was causing my whole body to tingle. It was a pleasant feeling. I remembered my earlier lessons dealing with the tingle. I allowed the feeling to permeate my whole being. It felt so wonderful that I wanted to share it. Focusing on the tingle, I allowed it to travel outside my body. I pushed it out as before, but this time I expanded with it, keeping myself attached to it. It's hard to explain, but I know what I did. After a few moments, I felt something wet and cold touch my hand. I opened my eyes and saw a deer standing right in front of me, her nose touching my open palm. Even though I should have been shocked, the feeling was natural and wonderful. I reached out and touched her on the head, just to make sure she was real. I wonder if I'll be able to do this again while listening to ordinary music, I pondered. Already on to the next experience, I see. I didn't know where those words were coming from. It felt as if someone was sending their thoughts to me. Then I realized that they seemed to be coming from the deer. I wasn't sure, but as soon as I looked at her in the eyes, more words entered my mind. All experiences, as well as all music, are ordinary. It is up to you to add the extra quality that makes something extraordinary. But like most humans, you risk missing much of the present experience by putting part of yourself in future or past experiences. I highly recommend you spend this moment in the now so that you and the experience can share with each other all that you have to offer. Oh, yay! Angel. Welcome, both of you. Awesome. This is so cool. I think I'm going to have to take my sweater off because that hot drink, woo! Yeah, I got to take the sweater off and then we'll get back into it. A deer, right up to his, oh man, that is something. Group hugs. Awesome. I'll put you over here. Okay. I got my hair trimmed today. Feels good. It's like way healthier. I like that. Okay. Yum. This is that magic mushroom or shroom magic mix. It is so good. It's a turmeric latte. Turmeric mushroom latte. Okie doke. So the last sentence that the deer speaks is into his mind, into his thoughts. I highly recommend you spend this moment in the now so that you and the experience can share with each other all that you have to offer. Her voice was tender and sweet. I'd never been given advice by a deer, so I decided to take it. I closed my eyes again, allowing myself to be fully in the moment. Thank you. It felt bizarre being in such a trance while at the same time being so aware. Taking hold of my awareness, I expanded myself even more until I could sense the plants and trees. I got the feeling that they too were listening to the music. I wondered if my aura could get poison ivy. A strange thought, I know, but it went along with the strange experience I was having. After relishing the music for a while, I opened my eyes and thought it was daytime. That was my first impression because everything was so bright, but then I noticed that the light I saw was a glow. I could see a bright glow surrounding everything, and I was part of it. I looked at Michael. He was still sitting there with his eyes closed, singing. I could see the music coming from him. It appeared to be mostly emanating from his mouth, but I noticed that it was also coming from his whole body, while at the same time entering his whole body. The music was connected to everything, and everything was connected to the music, including me. I could see vibrations bouncing off and passing through everything, allowing me to know that all things were alive and connected. I knew where all the animals were. I didn't even have to look. I just knew. I've never felt that way before or since. It's hard to put into words, but I felt like I cared so much about all things that I didn't care. I closed my eyes and sat inside the music. I listened to all the sounds around me and noticed how they fit in. Like different instruments in a band, each sound served a purpose. Each animal made a sound that somehow supported the other sounds while leaving enough space for all to participate. The music sounded and felt so wonderful. I knew that the best thing I could offer was silence, so I sat quietly. As I sat there listening, the orchestra grew stronger. It seemed as if more and more animals and insects were participating. I may have been the only animal in the forest not making a sound, but I knew that I was not the only animal listening. All the animals had to be listening in order to make a collective sound as beautiful as what I was experiencing. More than ever, I understood the power of listening, just listening. I wondered what music would be like if musicians listened like that. Only through the power of listening can you truly know anything. I don't know where the thought had come from. It felt as if it came from the music, as if the music were speaking directly to me. At that moment, I understood the connection between listening and feeling. I knew that they were the key to understanding everything, especially music. I'd been calling myself a musician for years, but at that moment, sitting in the woods, I was sure that the animals knew more about music than I did. For a while, I'd forgotten that the core of music was coming from Michael. Even though his voice clearly provided the baseline of the sound, I was in no way more important. Oh, it was in no way more important than any other voice. Months later, while playing with the band, I thought about my experience at the lake. I was able to use it to remind myself how to listen and fit in with other musicians. My newfound listening skill was one was one was one most other musicians neglected. It wasn't that they couldn't listen as well as I could, they just didn't. I noticed that most musicians seem to reserve their ears for themselves rather than open up their ears to the rest of the band. I found that when I listened to the other musicians more than I listened to myself, I played better. I realized that listening is a choice. The same is true in conversation. When I listen to other people more than to myself, I know how to respond and support them in a better way. It also helps me know when to remain quiet. Listening with my whole body became a huge benefit at my gigs. The few times I've tried to explain this concept to someone, it proved to be too much of a struggle. Most people can't understand. They approach it as a hypothetical concept, not as a reality. I will have to bring my musician friends into the woods and let them figure it out themselves, I guess. At the lake, I could feel the presence of all the animals around me. I opened my eyes again, and to my surprise, there were about 50 animals of all sizes, not counting the frogs and other small rodents sitting or standing around us. There were deer, coyotes, foxes, bobcats, rabbits, raccoons, possums, squirrels, beavers, birds, bats, snakes, otters, minks, mice, and more, all coexisting. Some of them were in the trees, and some were in the water. Wow. Hey, No Caps, welcome in. Awesome. Michael sang for a few more minutes before slowly fading into silence. Soon after, most of the other animals also became quiet, while the insects continued their chorus. I sat there in awe, realizing I might never hear anything like that again. Michael reached over and grabbed a snake that was curled up asleep in my lap. I hadn't noticed it was there. I was so shocked at the sight of all of the other animals that I didn't have time to be afraid of the snake that was now crawling down Michael's arm to the ground. As the animals calmly went their separate ways, Betty hopped up and again perched on my left leg. Thinking about the snake, I commented, "You almost joined your brother." I reached down and took my turn petting her belly. She seemed to enjoy it. We sat there for a while as Michael walked around, petting the remaining animals. They came up to him, wanting to get closer to the vibrations I could still see emanating from his body. It made me understand the effect some pop stars have on their fans. Do the fans just want to touch them, or do they unconsciously want to connect with their vibrations? The whole experience seemed surreal, but it was real. Real vibrations, real energy, real music, and I could feel it. I could see it. I could hear it. Now, oh, now, Michael whispered, that is how you listen to music. I don't know how much time had passed, but by the time we reached the car, the sun was almost up. I sat in the driver's seat with my head against the steering wheel. What was that, Michael? Don't try. You can't fit it into words. We drove home in silence. Boom. That's the chapter on listening. The last measure. Hey, you know what? I wonder if I can find on YouTube. Have you guys ever listened to crickets and they're like, when they're slowed way down, it sounds like a chorus of angels singing. It's amazing. Crickets. Slowed down. Yeah, let's try that. Okay. Let's see here. I'm going to try and share this on this screen. Present. Is that the thing? Share screen. Window. Chrome tab. YouTube. Share audio tab. Share. All right. Isn't that something? Wow, right? No human voices or instruments. Blows my mind. Right? All right. How about that, right? That is something else. Stop screen. Mind blowing. Mind blowing. So cool. All right. The last measure. The dream? Question mark. In all your musical years, when have you ever truthfully said thank you to your bass guitar? To your bass guitar. That's great. I was sitting there practicing on my couch. The next thing I remember, I was walking down a crowded street pushing a shopping cart. I don't recall whether it was day or night. I don't even recall being able to see myself, but I know that I was dressed in rags as if I were a bag lady collecting my prized possessions and pushing them around in a cart. The main difference was this: I was not collecting physical things, I was collecting thoughts. I could hear people's thoughts, and because there were so many, I could not keep up. I couldn't process them, so I carried them in my overflowing cart. All the people in the street made fun of me and called me names. The thoughts they projected were even worse. I didn't know I could hear them, or they didn't know I could hear them. I thought about all the so called crazy people I'd ever seen walking the streets. Maybe they weren't crazy at all. Maybe their minds were just open, too open for their own good. Maybe they just didn't know how to process all the information they were receiving. At that moment, I made a vow not only to change my views about crazy people, but to listen to them as well. It was amazing to think about the possibilities of all that could be learned. The possibility of being able to help them was also interesting to me. Maybe I could somehow help them gain control of the information overload. It was that thought that caused me to realize I was living a duality. I was simultaneously in two different places. I was the bag lady pushing the cart of thoughts, and I was also somewhere else, watching and thinking about it all. I tried to see if I could get a handle on some of the thoughts that were coming in. Could I help that person, me, control and maybe organize some of the thoughts that were overwhelming me? I tried to focus on some of the thoughts. The energy in my head and in the cart was swirling, blending together. It was a very confusing mix of information, but there was one force that seemed to be prevailing. I can't explain what it looked like or how I could distinguish it from the others, but I could feel that that particular energy was different. I felt it was beckoning to me, so I reached out and tried to grab it. It grabbed me instead. It was a gentle tug to which I immediately surrendered. I found myself in another place, or more accurately, another space. I can't exactly call it a room because there were no walls, floors, or ceiling. Colors enveloped me, and looking back on it, I realized the colors were constantly changing. I was surrounded by an energy that I somehow sensed was alive, so I decided to speak to it. "Who are you?" "I am music," she responded. Her voice was sweet, the type you could melt right into. I don't know why I had attached a female gender to it. Maybe it was because of the gentle nature I felt emanating from her. "Music?" I replied. "I never realized you were really alive." "I know. You have chosen not to realize it, and that is why your musical life has never been alive. It is also why mine is fading." "What do you mean by that?" Your approach toward me has been as if I am not real, like I am a dream. You feel that I do not exist until you create me, and even then, you feel I am a creation that is separate from you. Most musicians in your time feel as you do. Because of that, I am dying and in need of your help." I could tell that she was not well, but I hadn't focused on that had but I hadn't focused on that thought because I hadn't realized music was alive until then. I could tell there was a difference in the way my new friends spoke about music. Now I knew why. Music is alive and real, but how could she be sick? And why was she asking for my help? "How can I help you?" I asked. "When you were young, you weren't afraid to dream, and it was those dreams that gave birth to your reality. You knew that I was alive and inside you. You could feel our union and would express it any time and any way you chose. As you grew older, you yearned to know more about me, but through lessons and books, you abandoned your own experience for someone else's. The more you learned, the less you felt. The more you opened your eyes, the less you dreamed. The more you practiced, the less you played, and soon you forgot about me. There is no one to blame for this. Your parents and your teachers did what they thought was best for you. But it was that way of learning that diminished a lot of your natural gifts. What were my natural gifts? Knowing has always been one of your best attributes, but it is one that you are now afraid to use. You do not trust yourself the way you once did. When you were a child, you knew that you knew and didn't question what you knew. There was no need for others' justification or approval. Your experience, coupled with what you felt, was your truth. If you felt me inside you, you would sing, play, or dance. You did not need an outside reason for doing it. You did not need instructions on how to do it. You did not even need an instrument. And you surely didn't care what anyone else thought if he or she saw or heard you doing it. It was beautiful. Everyone who was near you would be pulled into our world, and for a little while, they too would feel their connection with me. They would feel the realness of music. I could remember doing that as a child. I would get a feeling and, without thinking, just let it out. I'd start singing at the top of my lungs or sometimes quietly to myself. I'd dance to a tune playing in my head or to the one floating through the trees. My parents always said that I'd drum on everything I could and that I'd make instruments out of anything that was around. I don't know when or how I'd lost the gift, but music was right. I had lost it. How can I regain these natural gifts? I asked. You must recognize them, she answered. You never completely lost anything. You just buried those gifts way down deep inside you. You must recognize them and bring them back to the forefront of your being before it will become enjoyable to you again. Music lessons were not enjoyable to you as a child because you could already play. Playing. Your music teacher forced you to play scales, fingerings, and rudiments, but did not allow you to play freely, and that, you felt, held you back. Therefore, you did not enjoy or benefit from those lessons. You approached each lesson with a sense of dread. Even now, you feel that way about practicing. You don't want to practice, you just want to play. So if you feel that practice is necessary, it would benefit you to figure out how to practice while you play so that you can make the most of both. You have not been smart enough to figure that out yet, but know this. As your days approach their final numbers, you will not spend one moment wondering whether you've practiced your bass enough. Thinking about my final days was a bit disturbing, but I knew that what she said was true. I would never again allow myself to waste precious time worrying about something as trivial as practicing. Even though I understood the benefits, I knew that practicing never took me as far as when I would allow myself to completely let go while playing music. I loved that feeling, but it only happened on rare occasions. How could I make it a frequent occurrence? Music responded to my thoughts. In your mind, music is not a part of who you are. It is something you have to go. It is something you have. It is something you have to go somewhere else to do. Whether it is the woodshed or the nightclub, you feel that you must go to that place to find me. You do not carry me inside you at all times the way you once did. Actually, there are few who do anymore. This lack of union is causing me to die. I will work on it, I promise. It does not take work. It takes remembering, enjoying, rejoicing, recognizing, playing, and knowing. It should be easy. When you were a child, it did not feel like work, and it should not feel like work now. If it does, you know you are going about it the wrong way. At that time, take a moment to go inside. Remember what I truly feel like. Then you will know where to be and what to do next. Regain your knowing of me. Books and teachers can be of assistance, but you should never let them take the place of what you feel and what you know within yourself. Only use these outside aids as tools to confirm, challenge, or show you more about what you know and feel inside. That is all. Never let them take the place of your natural gifts. What she was saying was true, and I knew it. There was a time when our connection was so natural that I didn't have to think about it. I knew that was one of the gifts she was talking about. Give me 5 words to describe me, I felt her say. As strange as it was, having a conversation with music herself, I accepted it completely. And now she was asking me to describe her. Feeling her energy all around me, it was an easy task. Love, emotion, beauty, expression, harmony, communication, spiritual, natural, vibrations, God. I know I gave you more than 5, but I feel like I could go on forever. Yes, you could go on forever, and all of your words would be wonderful. The words you gave are beautiful ones that describe me perfectly. That should remind you that you do know who I am. Why is it then that when it is time for you to play, you choose to forget? I didn't know what to say or think. Notice, she continued, that you didn't choose the words technique, scales, modes, theories, notes, tapping, thumbing, major, minor, or key signatures. You didn't even use the words bass or guitar. But those are the words you choose to think about when it's time for you to play. Inside, you know that that's not who I really am. If all your attention is directed toward those words, then will you ever get to play music? I suggest you take a good look at the wonderful words you use to describe me and learn how to play them. If that is what I am to you, that is what you should be playing. That's awesome. You have spent years learning how to play the bass, so long that you have forgotten that it is music you should be playing. The bass is just a tool to help you express yourself through me. Why then, after all these years, do you continue to focus on the tool? You have forgotten. I patiently await your return. Her vibrations pierced my flesh in a way that made me feel both guilty and refreshed. I knew she wasn't judging me, just telling the truth. The fact that she spoke through energy, not words, caused me to hear her with my whole body. And these vibrations were exactly what I needed. They seemed to touch my very soul. If you wanted to know more about your mother, she continued, would you get a book and read about her? Would you find a teacher to teach you about her? A book might help you find your mother, but once you did find her, would you worship the book? Would you even need the book anymore? Or would you go directly to your mother and talk to her, listen to her, experience her, and unite with her? You and I both know the answer. Experiencing your mother directly would be the absolute best way for you to learn about her. Pertaining to music, most people choose the first 2 methods because that is all they know. They don't realize they can do the latter. They talk about me as if they know me. They write books about me. They open schools that teach about me. They create whole departments in universities named after me. They even create and use numerous methods to play me, only to argue about which ones are best. And most of the time, it is only the superficial me they talk about, not the real me they once knew in their hearts. Can you believe they've actually turned me into a business? I could feel her power as she spoke, but then, as I continued to listen, her voice became so enchanting that it gave me goosebumps. Goosebumps never lie, my mom always told me. What people don't do anymore is talk to me, simply and honestly talk to me, music continued. The few who do don't expect me to answer. My relationship with computers is about to become more intimate than it is with humans. People refuse to feel me. I reach out to them, but they retract their hands. That saddens me deeply. I tell you, it is a lonely world I live in. All I ask is to be felt. I reached out to you, and you took my hand. That makes me happy. You give me hope. I felt sad for her. I could feel all her emotions seeping into me. It made me cry. I made a silent vow to remember that feeling and use it to help me change my ways. I realized once again that music is real, alive, and approachable. I could talk with her, sit with her, embrace her, laugh, and cry with her. I also knew that I didn't have to try to create her anymore. She already exists. All I have to do is come to this place, and music will be waiting, complete, whole, and alive. I wanted to help others know what I knew. I wanted others to feel what I felt. I wanted to help others remember their union with music in a real way. I would do my best to help her to I would do my best to help keep her alive. I would no longer be a part of the death of music. Thank you, I cried. Thank you so much. You've helped me understand the responsibility, honor, and joy of being a musician. You are quite welcome. But you should also thank your bass. The instrument you have chosen helps you come to me on a daily basis. In all your musical years, when have you ever truthfully said thank you to your bass guitar? The question stunned me. There was nothing I could say. She paused, allowing me time to digest her words before she continued. Do that honestly and frequently and notice what happens. All the elements that make up your instrument are alive. Your recognition and appreciation of them may change the way you respond to each other. Thank my bass? It was a profound concept, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. I found it hard to believe that I'd never done it before. I'd never even thought about it. After all the years of playing the instrument, I'd never once said thank you to it. I knew that something in my life would have to change. Remember, she said, play me all you want, but you must know this. It is only when you allow me to play you that you will know me completely, because then we will be one and the same. Allow music to play me? Hey, buddy, welcome in. It's so good. Allow music to play me? That was another new concept that made complete sense. I that was another new concept that made complete sense. I didn't know why I hadn't thought of it before. I realized for the first time that my relationship with music had always been one-sided. I'd never really listened to her. That type of relationship never worked. Only through the power of listening can you truly know anything, she told me. Those words continue to stick with me. Closing my eyes, I allowed her to take control. It caused a shift in my energy, and for the first time, I could sense my body. Something was growing inside me. It felt as if my whole body was vibrating with intense speed. I also noticed that I was glowing with vibrant colors, the same colors that music was emanating. Music and I were becoming one. As good as it felt, I didn't trust myself enough to let go completely. I was still holding on to something. Relax, let go. What are you holding on to? As soon as that thought entered my mind, I had a quick glimpse of myself as the bag lady pushing the cart. I fought hard to hold on to the feeling of light, the feeling of union, the feeling of music. I was losing it. Help me, what should I do? There are no shoulds or shouldn'ts. There are only choices. What you choose to do next is up to you. No one can tell you what that is. You have been shown all you need to know. I recognized the voice. I opened my tear-filled eyes to see Michael standing in front of me, in the exact place he'd stood when he first appeared in my house. Was it he, or was it music who'd been talking to me just moments ago? For the first time since I'd met him, Michael was dressed in ordinary clothing. He wore black slacks, a button-down white shirt, and a tie. Even his shoes were normal, and there was no sign of his skateboard. I couldn't believe it. I was confused. I must be dreaming, I said out loud. Sitting up to get a better look, I shook my head and wiped the tears from my eyes. As they cleared, a change took place. Michael now appeared to be wearing the blue NASA-style jumpsuit I'd originally seen him in. In one hand was his motorcycle helmet. His skateboard was in the other. Michael, was all I could think to say. Even though he now looked like himself, I was confused even more. Dress and act ordinary, and you produce ordinary students, was all I heard him say. With a quick smile and a wink of his eye, he was gone. Just gone. I didn't understand. I shook my head once more to see if it would make him reappear. It didn't. I couldn't figure out how to feel or what to think. The only thing I did know was that it would be the last time I would see him. I fell back on the couch, staring into space, clutching my bass in my lap. I glanced across the room and saw a skateboard on the floor. I sat up. Michael's, I thought, or wait a minute, is it mine? I used to own one. I reclined once again. I couldn't begin to figure it out. My mind was racing and I started to feel dizzy. I searched for it, but the line that separated asleep from awake was nowhere to be found, and the line that kept me sane was fading fast. I was losing it, and I knew it. I was scared. Pull yourself together, I told myself. Don't get trapped by your mind. Wait a minute. I remember those words. They were Michael's. Or were they mine? Wake up! Go to sleep! Do something! Just don't lose it! I uttered aloud. Michael warned me about this. Yes, Michael! Right! Think! What else did Michael say? You have been shown all you need to know. Who said that? What did it mean? All I need to know to do what? I still had no gigs, no money, and if I didn't soon pay my rent, I'd have no place to live. My impending situation caused reality to creep in. That was a feeling I could handle. As if drowning in the sea, I grasped for that piece of reality like a life preserver. I missed. Instead, I was drowning in the depths of my mind. I tried hard to make sense out of any of it, but I couldn't even get myself off the couch. It was hard to believe that just a few minutes earlier, I was filled with emotion and tears, and now I was scared and depressed. I tried to go back to sleep, but couldn't. Maybe I am asleep. Wait a minute. Have I been asleep all along? I just sat down to practice, right? I shook my head again and struggled to get up. In the process, I accidentally plucked a string on my bass guitar. With the bass laying in my lap, the sound reverberated through my body, triggering a familiar feeling. I was starting to regain some composure. I thought about music. The thought of her caused me to relax a bit more. I focused harder, trying to see if I could reclaim more of my mind. It worked. I could remember part of my vision and vow to help keep her alive, but I couldn't remember how I was supposed to do it. Remember, you can do it, I told myself. Try harder. I lay there thinking hard enough to make my head hurt when I heard Michael's voice one more time. Try easy, my friend. Try easy. And then the very last bit of this book is called Coda, which, yeah, is perfect. It's like starting back to the beginning. That's what a coda is in music, right? It's so cool. We all have funny thoughts, right? Mm. Okay. Back to the beginning. What is more dangerous to a person, success or failure? Life has a way of repeating itself. It also seems to go by much faster as one gets older. It's been nearly 5 years since I pushed that shopping cart, and even though I can sometimes hear his voice in my head and can still recall every experience like it happened yesterday, I haven't seen Michael since that day. Well, actually, I'm not so sure about that. Last summer, I was invited to play a benefit concert at Carnegie Hall in New York City, which was a thrill, to say the least. While playing, I thought I saw a familiar face sitting in the balcony. I felt him more than I saw him. Maybe I just wanted it to be him. The balcony at the theater is too far away to clearly see anyone's face, but when he winked at me, I was pretty sure that it was him. There was an unmistakable sparkle that I recognized. As far as I know, he didn't leave a note or try to make contact with me in any other way. It would be good to see him again, but I don't expect to, though I do continue to think and dream about him. Somehow I feel that he is somewhere close, watching. Much has changed in the last 5 years, and because of Michael, my life is continually changing for the better. My relationship with music is allowing me to play better than ever, and everyone can tell. It took me a while, but now I think I understand what it meant when I was told that I needed to stop playing the instrument. These days, even though I'm not yet consistent, I do my best to play music instead of the bass. I've become a regular member of Jonelle's band and continue to play with the Cliff Notes when time allows. I feel fortunate that staying busy and keeping my head above water is no longer a struggle. Recently, I heard about a bluegrass musician who is forming a jazz band to perform a few songs on a television show. He heard about me through a mutual friend and wants me to contact him. I'm not sure if my style will work with his. My taste for bluegrass hasn't fully developed yet, but since he's putting together a jazz band, I may give him a call. Being recognized and sought out by local musicians has done a lot for my self-esteem. When the local music society awarded me the honor of Nashville Bass Player of the Year, it came as a surprise. The second time, even though I sort of expected it, was still a great honor and has led to other opportunities. The recognition of my peers has made me feel wonderful, and I appreciate all of it. But I'm always sure to keep myself in check. What is more dangerous to a person, success or failure? Michael once asked me. I know people who have been hurt by I know people who have been hurt on both sides of that fence. A few acquaintances of mine were almost unrecognizable after they had achieved success. They turned into people I never would have chosen as friends. A few others gave up after just a few failures, allowing their lifelong dreams to dissipate. I decided to do my best not to fall into either of those categories. I'm now also being asked by music stores and colleges to teach master classes in clinics. I don't consider myself a master of anything, nor do I have much class. But even though I never attended college, I guess I do have a few things to offer. People repeatedly ask me which music schools I've attended. Michael's School of Music and Life, I'm always tempted to say, but never have. I haven't told many people about my experiences with him. Even my girlfriend hasn't heard the whole story. I'm always willing to share the lessons learned, but rarely do I tell anyone where I learned them. Who would believe me anyway? I mean, I never found out who Michael really was or where he came from. The more time goes by, the more I start to think that maybe, just maybe, he came from my imagination, from some unused portion of my mind, where he's now gone back to live again. I can still hear him knocking around in there much of the time. Like I said, it's as if he's constantly rearranging the furniture. I think about all of them a lot. Michael, Uncle Clyde, Sam, and Isis. Why were these bizarre people sent to me? Or was I sent to them? Either way, the short time we spent together brought me further along the path of music than I ever could have imagined. Ooh, excuse me again. You see, to me, they are music. It was made clear to me that music is related to everything, especially nature and language, but in order to speak it naturally, I had to first make myself a part of it. Music herself told me that. Music herself told me that. And now that I understand what she was talking about, I can fully appreciate the lyric. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Now, regarding Isis, I don't know which was stranger, her or her information. Anyway, it's taken me nearly 5 years, but now I can clearly see the part numbers play in music. All music can be broken down into numbers, and since music and life are the same, I guess that life is numbers too. Boom! I once heard someone say that all of life could be broken down into a mathematical equation. That's too much math for me, but I guess anything is possible. I do know that Nashville musicians have figured out a way to read and write music without using letters at all. They call it the Nashville number system. Sam and I are now constant companions. He's the only one with whom I can share Michael's stories. We hang out together and help each other assimilate all that we're still learning. Although I've progressed enough to be able to show him a few things, Sam still does most of the teaching. Simon, Genevieve, Cleveland, welcome everybody. We're just getting to the very nitty-gritty end, and dang, it's so good. Uncle Clyde died a few years ago. At least that's what I think happened. It made me think about a saying I once heard Michael use. It had something to do with a library being lost every time an elderly person dies. That definitely applies to Clyde. I know that I'd only gotten a glimpse of the knowledge inside his mind. Dude, that's something that Dixie and I talk about. Because her husband passed away, I guess going on 2 years now, and he was so cool, Gene. He was a doctor, and he was all into holistic medicine. And she talks about how she said it like multiple times in the past year, that she can't believe that like all that knowledge he had is just now poof. Right? She says, I wish we could have downloaded into other people. I used to visit him regularly until one day he and his few belongings were gone. When I asked people in the area about him, no one seemed to know who I was talking about. A few people said they remembered something about a car accident. Maybe it was the one I witnessed. the one where Michael and Clyde's help brought a man back to life. I seemed to be the only one who had a clear recollection of the man who lived under the bridge. That was strange, but there was something more bizarre than that. When I went to visit Clyde for the last time, there was nothing left under the bridge except his harmonica. It was sitting there, out in the open, apparently waiting for me. I was surprised that no one had taken it. Michael would have said that Clyde left it for me, and I'm sure that Clyde would have wanted me to have it. So I took it. It was a sad day. Oh, I was sad that day. The most peculiar part of the story lies in the fact that when I picked up his harp, I could play it. When I first touched it, I knew I could play it, so I did. Right then and there, all by myself, I played. When I returned home and took out Clyde's instrument, the feeling wasn't there, so I didn't attempt to play it again and haven't since. I know that I'll regain the feeling when the time is right. Fiona, yay! Welcome, Gators, everyone! This magic book, we're almost to the end. A similar thing happened with Isis. After getting a handle on what she had talked about, I went back to the bookstore to ask her more questions. To my surprise, there were no signs of her anywhere in the store. Even her table was gone. The sales clerk told me that they didn't offer gift wrapping and never had. Feeling unsure of myself, I didn't ask if Isis had ever worked there. When I returned to my car, there was a blank card stuck under the left windshield wiper. When I pulled the card out and flipped it over, I was shocked. There was nothing on it but a handwritten circle, the number 0. I was bewildered. I wandered all around the parking lot looking for Isis. She couldn't have gotten far. I listened for the jingle of her bells. There was nothing. I started to go back into the store and ask more questions, but something told me to just let it be. Tired, dazed, and confused, I got in the car. As I cranked the engine, a song by the Beatles just happened to be playing on the radio. Paul McCartney's lyrics eased my mind as his soothing voice filled the air. Let it be, let it be. I did just that. And I kept the card in my wallet at all times. And I keep that card in my wallet at all times. Believe it or not, I've also kept in touch with the red-shouldered hawk. Or maybe it's he who has kept in touch with me. He's chosen to follow me since I moved to the woods west of town. The nest he shares with his bride is just a short walk from my log cabin. Whenever I get that certain feeling, I go outside and he's usually sitting there on a low limb. I just watch him stare at me, tilting his head from side to side. He acts as if he has something to tell me, or maybe he's just checking up on me. Although I try, I haven't gotten him to land on my arm yet. Maybe one day. Following Michael's instructions, I've started meditating every day. Well, almost every day. It has helped me in all aspects of my life, especially with my connection to music and the natural world. I've also become a fairly decent naturalist and tracker. I attribute most of it to daily meditation. Things are really going well now that I've processed most of what Michael has shown me. His lessons and concepts were relatively simple to grasp once I was made aware of them. I also had to become familiar with his teaching style. For example, when he first told me that notes were overrated, I didn't quite understand what he was getting at. I found out later that he didn't actually believe that statement. He told me that just to make me focus more on the other elements. He felt, as I do now, that the other elements are neglected by most teachers and musicians and that they need more attention. I finally understand it. His stretching the truth style of teaching was new to me, but once I understood how and why it was used, I added it to my own teaching method. Awareness was also an integral part. Integral. Are both right? Integral? Awareness is also an integral part of his teachings, and it's become a part of mine. He made me aware of things that I'd never thought about. Now that I've tuned into this way of thinking, I've made it my own and produced my own miracles. One day, while I was in an art museum in Paris, a strange thing happened. I noticed a string of faint but glowing tracks on the marble floor. I'd never seen tracks like those, so I did what any tracker would have done. I followed them. They led me to a kid who'd been separated from his parents. He told me that he'd stopped to look at something, and when he turned around, they were gone. His tears were almost too much for me to bear. I found an employee and told her what was going on. That led to a quick and happy reunion with his family. The incident wasn't as strange as the fact that the whole thing took place in French. I'd never spoken French until that moment. It was later that I remembered getting the tingling feeling when I saw the boy's tears. It was the same feeling I get every time I sensed the hawk or when I picked up Uncle Clyde's harmonica and realized I could play it. The feeling is still kind of surreal. Like a premonition, it always precedes the experience. Whenever it shows up, I know that something special is soon to follow. I finally understand my childhood attraction to Spider Man. It's as if I have my very own spidey sense. When I returned from Paris, it started happening all the time. I would just know things without knowing where the knowledge came from. At first, it surprised me, but now I expect it. This confidence makes it come on even stronger. Every time it happens, I joke with myself that it's Michael inside my head. Thanking my base is a new habit of mine. I used to give thanks only when I was about to eat a meal, but now I say thank you to everything. I thank my headaches, my clothes, my television, and my life. And I thank music. I thank everything all the time, and it really makes a difference. The first time I really thanked my bass was an amazing experience. The whole concept was new to me. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do, but I poured myself into it. I thanked the tuning pegs for enduring the heat as they were being melted down. I thanked the strings for being wound and twisted. I thanked the wood for being cut, scraped, and sanded. I thanked the wires, the pickups, the electronics, and batteries. I even thanked the people and thoughts involved in manufacturing each part. I thanked everything I could think of for going through what it went through in order to produce an instrument for my benefit. I also apologized for not doing so before. The whole process took about 20 minutes. Once I finished, I stood up, put my guitar in its case, and picked up my other bags. As I bent down to pick up my bass, it seemed to lift itself and fly over my shoulder. I stood there in shock. Usually the case alone is enough to give me a backache, but that time it felt as light as a feather. Oh man, Michael, this stuff really works. The strangest of all coincidences happened while I was visiting my parents in Virginia. I was in between tours and had decided to go back to my hometown for a few days of vacation. While I was there, I made contact with many old friends and spent some quality time with my folks. I decided, for some reason, to go out jogging early one morning. When I got outside, I realized that it was a bit chillier than I'd thought. I hadn't dressed appropriately. The sun had not yet risen enough to warm the day. Running was not my favorite hobby, and I was not about to run while cold. Not wanting to waste any time, I went back to my parents' house to grab the first thing I could find to stay warm. Realizing that I'd locked myself out of their house, I grabbed my mom's yellow rain jacket off the porch and a wide brim brown hat my dad used for gardening. Since my folks weren't up yet, I figured I could use the garments without them being missed. I realized that the clothes, along with my blue running tights, would make me a peculiar sight. I ran further than I thought I would that morning. Not being an experienced jogger, I found myself exhausted several miles from my parents' house. I'd forgotten that I would have to run back. I decided to walk. On my way home, I decided to take a shortcut, or so I thought, through a department store parking lot. From a distance, I noticed that I looked like a unicycle leaning against. Wait. From a distance, I noticed what looked like a unicycle leaning against the store's garbage dumpster. Getting closer, I realized I was right. A longtime fan of the circus, I took the unicycle, planning to make it rideable someday. The rim was bent, making the wheel wobble as I rolled it down the street. The town had changed a lot since I was last there. That, coupled with the shortcut, had me thoroughly disoriented. Once I realized I was lost, it happened. It started with the now familiar tingle. which was stronger than usual that day. I didn't know what it was or what it meant, but I knew that something or someone was speaking to me. I heightened my awareness and sent out my feelers in every direction. Nothing stood out, so I kept walking until I reached the next apartment complex. It was there that things started to feel familiar, although nothing was recognizable. As I walked by, I noticed a flash of light come from somewhere on the third floor of one of the buildings. I wondered if it was just a reflection from the sun. Unable to ignore it, I found myself walking up the stairs to the third floor, unicycle in tow. Once I reached the area where the flash had come from, I noticed I was standing outside an apartment. The door was right in front of me. Don't ask me why, but I just walked right in. As I entered the apartment, I could immediately tell I was in a single man's home. Stuff was scattered everywhere. I looked across the room and noticed a young man in his early 20s sleeping on the couch with, you guessed it, an electric bass in his lap. Interesting. Ah. I walked over to get a closer look. As soon as I was standing in front of him, his eyes opened. "Who are you?" he asked, maybe calmer than he should have been. Not knowing what else to say, I went with my gut. "I am your teacher," I answered. "Teacher of what?" "Nothing." "How'd you get in here?" he questioned. "You asked me to come." "I did? Did I give you a key?" "I don't need a key." "What are you going to teach me?" "Nothing." "What do you mean, nothing?" "Exactly that, nothing. I can teach you nothing because no one can teach anybody anything, but I can show you things." "Can you show me music?" he asked. "Yes, I can, but not as well as music herself can show you." "What do you mean, music herself?" "You'll see, or not," I answered, sporting the Cheshire Cat grin of my own. "If you're not a teacher, who are you, and what do I call you?" I thought before I answered. I could have told him anything. Victor. I said, "Call me Victor." He sat up on the edge of the couch. "Okay, Victor, let's get started." Wow, he's already much further along than I was. I wasn't sure if I was ready as my new student. I wasn't sure if I was as ready as my balls. I wasn't sure if I was as ready as my new student seemed to be. Then I realized what was happening. For the first time, I fully understood what Michael was getting at when he told me something about being the keeper of the flame. "Remember," Michael had said, "it is easy to learn to play your instrument, but playing it well is not enough. It is time for you to enter the world of a true musician. It is time for you to become an ally of music and share her blessings. You are now the keeper of the flame. Please keep that flame alive, and do not, I say, do not allow music to die." What am I getting myself into? I'm not Michael. This is his gig, not mine. But I was there, and he wasn't, so I decided to go with it. What else was I to do? As I started to take a seat, I glanced down at myself, realizing what I must look like. "Dress and act ordinary, and you produce ordinary students," were the words that came to mind. I decided, at that moment, to do my best to live up to that statement. Michael would be proud. Playing with that kid's mind was already fun, and I was looking forward to more. Accepting my new role, I took my seat, pulled the brim down over my eyes, and held the unicycle in my lap. Sitting poised and ready, I prepared to strum the stroke. I prepared to strum the spokes. "Where do you want to begin?" I asked the kid. As he sat up in his chair, and an all too familiar phrase was spoken. "Boy, do I have a lot to learn." Dang! The end. That's it. Oh, man. About the author. Victor Lamont Wooten is a 4-time Grammy Award-winning musician and a 3-time winner of Bass Player Magazine's Player of the Year award, the only bass player to win this award more than once. The youngest of 5 brothers, he started playing the bass guitar around the age of 2 and was the bass player in the family band, the Wooten Brothers, before he started school. Victor credits his brothers and his parents for his outlook on music and life. His unique gifts his unique gifts, as well as his love for sharing them, inspired writer Paul Hargett to write an authorized biography about him titled Me and My Bass Guitar. Amberrock Publications. www.meandmybassguitar.com. He continues to record and tour with his own band and as an original member of the Grammy Award-winning ensemble Bella Fleck and the Flecktones. Victor lives with his wife and 4 kids in a log cabin near Nashville, Tennessee. To find out more about Victor Lamont Wooten, his music books, his camps, and other interests, please visit www.victorwooten.com or www.thebassvault.com and www.flecktones.com. Oh, look at that baby face. Right? Boom! Juicy. So good. So thankful. So thank you, everyone, for being here with me tonight. Thank you, Victor. Thank you, all the characters in this book. Thank you, YouTube. Thank you, StreamYard. And yeah, I'm not sure what my next book will be, but I'm thinking I'm going to do it tomorrow. So yeah, we can hang out again if you'd like to. So again, thank you very much. I hope you guys are having a great start to your week. And I appreciate you so much. Mwah. Until next time, I'll see you then. Thank you. Oh, whoa. How do I... Boop. Wrong one. End broadcast. Okay, thank you.